So good evening all. So let me introduce to our panelists today. So we have Michael Brown. So the man who doesn't need an introduction, I would say. So he is a lead instructor with almost around like 17 plus years of experience with Becker. So lead instructor taking classes for CMA and CPA. We have Shripal sir, the most known person for CPA classes. So he will be here to answer most of your questions. So we will first begin with Mike, sir, to give a brief introduction.
Well, thank you, and good morning from the U.S. On this Saturday. It's a pleasure to be virtually back with you and to talk a little about the CMA exam. So, by way of introduction, yeah, I'm a national instructor with Becker, although really what it boils down to is I speak to folks about CPA, CMA, teach continuing education. Basically, if it has anything to do with the profession of accountancy and teaching it, fair likelihood that I'll speak about it. Today, I wanted to kick us off by giving you kind of an overview of the CMA exam, and I wanted to focus in particularly on some of the upcoming changes to the exam. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the CPA and the recent changes in that exam, I want to start by saying this is not that. This is not nearly as dramatic as some of the changes that we saw at the beginning of this year for the CPA exam, but it's important to stay informed and be aware of what they're doing to the CMA exam. And also just as important is how Becker and Simmental help to accommodate those changes and help to make sure that you're informed about what's going to happen next. So just to kind of take us through this first section. So let me start with just a broad overview, because sometimes with an audience, you never know, right? Some of you may be well acquainted with the format and the content of the CMA exam. Some of you may be saying, I've heard about it. I'm not sure if this is something I want to pursue, but I'd like to be more informed. So to make sure we're all on the same page, I thought I'd start with that. So in terms of the structure of the exam, it starts with 100 multiple choice questions. What's important to note is this is the majority of your score on the CMA exam, in fact, 75%. And in terms of timing, you have up to 3 hours to complete this portion of the exam. In a little bit, in just a moment, I'll talk about what content is covered, but that is the lion's share of where your score is going to come from, is from those multiple choice questions. Now, in order to reach the final segment of the exam, you have to at least get half of those questions right. So imagine in this computerized environment, the computer will do a quick check, just raw score, and at least half of those have to be correct. And the reason's simple. If you don't at least have half right, you're in a position then that you cannot pass the exam, and so they don't want to waste your time. And so at that point, the exam would end. But as long as you've gotten at least half of those questions right, you reach the ending section of the exam, which are essays. Think of these as kind of extended multi-part cases or word problems where they're going to give you a fact pattern and then ask you a variety of separate questions, and you respond to those in kind of an open format, almost like if you had to answer using Microsoft Word, right? It's just an open format text that you respond to those questions. Those questions can be quantitative, meaning they'll ask you to do a computation or the like, or they could be qualitative, asking you to explain or talk about benefits and drawbacks and that kind of thing. And in both, they're helping to assess your knowledge and kind of the depth of your knowledge in that area. Obviously, those two essays, which typically will have 5 to 7 parts each, represent the other 25% of your score. Now, I would argue one of the most interesting facets of the CMA exam is the way the clock is managed. So rule 1 is you have 4 hours in total, and you can use up to 3 on the multiple choice. What that means is whatever time is left on the clock when you finish and move from the multiple choice to the essays is how much time you have for those essays. You'd have at least an hour, but you could have more. So if you finish those multiple choice in, say, 2.5 hours, you would then be left with an hour and a half to work through those essay questions. Although the test is designed such that 1 hour should be sufficient in order to respond to those essay questions. So that's the structure. Let's talk a little bit about the content. So the way they break up the CMA exam is into 2 parts. I won't say that's the most creative name, but that's what they call them, part 1 and part 2. You are not required to take them in that order, although more candidates than not do take part 1 and then part 2 in that sequence, but that's not a requirement. Each part, in turn, is made up of 6 content areas, and so they're basically labeled 1A through F and 2A through F. So let's walk through what's in each of these. So what I tried to do here is give you the formal title. So that's what you see in the kind of the pie chart we're going to build here is what they call that area. But then in the box to the right or the left, you'll see, well, this is what that represents, or here's what they kind of delineate as being part of that content area. So the first is external financial reporting decisions. It's about, call it a sixth, it's a fairly even distribution for part one. Good way to think of this is financial accounting. So if you think about the core of financial accounting that the CPA exam is testing, that lines up pretty effectively with this section of the CMA exam. I'm sometimes asked, is there overlap between the two? Definitely. And this is a great example of, yes, we can see that overlap. The second area, a little bit bigger, gets more into what we think of as managerial accounting, planning, budgeting, forecasting, and that's going through all the various techniques and building a budget, a profit plan, supporting schedules, all the things that go into that facet. Third area, performance management. So this gets into how we assess variance analysis, how somebody is doing or how a particular part of our business is doing. It gets to the notion of a part of the business could be responsible for revenue, for cost, for profit, and how we can measure the performance of the business. Fourth, gets more into kind of nuts and bolts cost accounting, which is cost management, and they talk about different costing systems. And what you'll notice, this is a great example of where the exam tries to both deal with kind of the how do you calculate whatever it is, so dealing with things like measurement concepts and costing systems, but also introduces broader concepts, issues like supply chain management and business process improvement, which speak more to the strategic role that managerial and cost accountants play. Fifth, this one is near and dear to my heart only because I'm an auditor by trade. That's where I started my career. So have a good working familiarity with internal controls. So again, somewhat of an overlap with CPA content here because it speaks to both governance and risk management, as well as kind of the nuts and bolts of controls and security measures. And then lastly, and actually the newest section, this was one of the more recent additions to the CMA exam, which I imagine is not surprising given what has gained momentum in the business world, is technology and particularly data analytics. So you'll see here again, broader coverage of concepts like data governance. This speaks to data ethics, right? It's an interesting field as folks are saying, okay, we can get our hands on a broader range and depth of data than ever before, but how do we use that responsibly? How do we look after the privacy and confidentiality of the information that we collect, and how can we use it? So I mentioned the exam is changing. So I wanted to highlight what exactly are they adding or enhancing or kind of building the importance. I always take this as an indication of what the IMA, right? The IMA is the organization that ultimately writes the CMA exam. They're the ones that provide it and kind of the responsible body for CMAs around the world. But I like to think that anytime they make an exam change, it's a glimpse into what they're thinking. And really, it's them telling you, here's what we see as some of the most important or emerging issues that we believe are gaining importance in this field. So the first is an addition to 1A. They say, well, we know we've covered financial statements, but globalization, right? More than ever, companies are dealing with multiple subsidiaries, right? They are spread around the world, which means one of the accounting issues is consolidation. And so they wanted to beef up kind of the coverage of consolidating and consolidated financial statements. In 1C, although it's not entirely a new concept by this area, it's more of a, we think it deserves more coverage, which is the importance of contribution margin as a concept of how to measure the performance of a business. This one's a little vague, but it's a recognition that companies also look for new ways to track their cost and new ways to, employ cost management in their business and their business processes. So they're kind of saying, look, we acknowledge there's some newer or additional costing systems that we should probably take into account as well. And additional depth in internal controls. Again, speaking a little bit like an auditor, this includes how to test internal controls as well as what does a company do when they have an identified deficiency in controls? How do they remediate those issues to ensure that the controls are effective moving forward? And finally, as I'd expect, I can't imagine, to be honest, that the CMA exam would go through any update without something being added to 1F, given the rapid pace of growth and change in data and analytics. And here, it's the area of data management. Again, speaking to, it's great to be able to collect these mountains of data when we think about terms like data warehouses. But how do we make sense of it? How do we organize it? How do we manage it? How do we leverage it going forward? And so again, this makes sense because it's the strategic role of the accountant to help provide some guidance in that area. Okay, so that's part one. Let's talk about part two. So the first one here starts with financial statement analysis. So when you think about ratios, when you think about common size financials or year over year and looking at variances to the prior year or to a budget or to a forecast, that's what they're focusing in on here. And that's a critical piece to the managerial accountant's role to help others understand the business better. A lot of people say CMAs can speak that financial accounting and that broader financial language, and they have to be able to explain it to those that may not be as well versed in those concepts and techniques. And so they have to be able to kind of, in plain language, explain, here's what's happening. Second, corporate finance. So very much when you think about the field of finance and you think about things like capital management and international finance and risk and return and working and raising capital for the business. So that's about 20%. The biggest single piece of the pie on either exam is a whopping 25% for business decision analysis. So this gets down to really one of the most important roles that a managerial accountant is going to play. What do we do? If you're saying, okay, I've got this new product, we're going to bring it to market. What should we charge for it? Well, that's a cost and managerial accounting decision. What's the appropriate price? Well, the question becomes, how much does it cost to make the product? What kind of profit are you looking for? Can the market bear that price? Will demand be sufficient? So we get into issues like cost and volume and profit, pricing. We look at marginal and break-even analysis as well. These are critical decisions. Plenty of companies over the years have had perfectly reasonable and viable products, but because they didn't have a smart pricing strategy, ultimately those businesses didn't succeed. The next one's a fairly small slice because it doesn't have a lot of breadth, but it's nonetheless important. That's risk management. Again, part of the spectrum of risk that any business can face is enterprise risk in terms of financial risk, capital risk, whatever the case may be. So an understanding of risk, and again, being able to articulate that for the business management team is important. Alongside that is capital investment decisions. Think of this as long-term. How is the business going to deploy its capital? What should they invest in? This gets into decisions like, should we buy that asset or should we lease it? Or should we invest in this project or that project? And at this point, you could almost go process of elimination because it's a profession. And part of and really a hallmark of the profession of accountancy at large is ethics and a code of ethics and a code of professional conduct. So the last section here, almost could say I'm saving the most important for last, is professional ethics, which includes the IMA's code of conduct and other considerations from an ethical perspective. Additions here. So again, these are what's coming. And by the way, these will launch with the September testing window. So anything you see here in red is soon to be added to the exam. So a little more kind of depth on financial trend analysis tagged to 2A. Additional coverage of debt financing. I think that the idea here is that perhaps there was more coverage or more emphasis on equity financing. And so they're saying, all right, we're going to actually increase the depth of coverage on debt financing as well. And then for capital budgeting and capital investment, again, a little more depth in terms of discount rates and use of discount rates for cash flow analysis, as well as sensitivity analysis, kind of playing that, what's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? How good or bad could this decision end up being for the business? And as I mentioned, ethics now incorporates data analytics and data ethics. It also is giving a little more attention to fraud. Not that that's the prettiest part of being an accountant or being in the business world, but understanding fraud and fraud risk is critical, and every business needs to have an awareness of it. And in many cases, it's those managerial accountants and accountants in general that have a good view into how fraud can come to pass. So, one question we've been asked. So when exactly do these changes go into effect? Well, the way the exam is given is in kind of these discrete windows of time. Generally 2 months on, 2 months off. So right now we're in an on period. So May and June is a open period. It will be closed in July and August. You can think of that as when they're going to formally change out the exam. And then when we get to the September-October window, that's when the new exam launches. But another question we're sometimes asked, especially given where we are in the year, you might be saying, well, gosh, if this new exam is coming this soon, and you just said that I've only got a couple of weeks left before the current exam is retired, would it make sense for me to start studying now? And the good news is we don't wait to update our course either. So as we release updates from a curriculum perspective, that's Becker's part of it. And certainly Simmenthal does the same thing in terms of making sure you're kept abreast and made sure that you're aware of here's what's changing and here's how we're going to tackle that. We do the very same. So don't feel like that the new exam is any reason to necessarily delay. Another question that we're asked is, well, okay, great. We get it that it's this tag team effort. And I really do look at it that way, is that what Becker brings to the table is a strong team of curriculum authors that are bringing the core materials, the videos, and perhaps most importantly, the questions that you can practice with to get proficient for the exam. And then Simmenthal provides additional support, really a strong layer of support locally, right? So that way you have someone, if you have questions, that you can reach out to, not to mention they can provide you advice in terms of study habits and scheduling and approach and the like. But one of the most important questions that people ask us is, does your course work? So how do we figure that out? Well, one of the things that we analyze as a metric for success is, well, how many folks pass the exam? But we kind of do it in an interesting way. What we wanted to figure out was not so much how many pass, as we were concerned with, for those that do, what do they do in the course? Particularly, are there any common threads? Are there any kind of common best practices that folks who are successful passing the CMA exam do? And we found out actually there are 3. So when you look at our course and how it's built, it's really built on 3 elements. There's lecture content, so there's a variety of kind of instructional content. There's practice questions, and then there's what we call simulated exams. Think of these as full-blown mock exams. What we found is that those that are successful engage in all 3 facets of the course. But what you'll notice is it doesn't say you have to do them all. Why? Well, because we understand that each person brings differing expertise to the table when they prepare for the CMA exam. You may say, well, I do, in my current job, I do variance analysis all the time. I do that every week. I'm very familiar with it. Well, you may look at that and say, I don't think I need to watch or go through the lecture content because I feel like my knowledge is already pretty solid there. The idea is, at a minimum, you should be watching at least 80% of that content. That's going to get you to proficiency. But it acknowledges that you may not need to watch every bit of it, given your expertise. Now, that being said, do we have candidates that look at me and go, I'm going to watch every bit of it anyway? You certainly can. Second, with question proficiency, bear in mind, the objective here is to pass. Now, I'm not saying don't get the best score you can on the CMA exam, but the ultimate objective where we put our emphasis is passing. So in that vein, do you need to know every single answer to every single question? Although that you could argue that's ideal, I would counter with, but is it necessary? In this case, we want you to work those questions and work them to a level of proficiency. The way we kind of track this metric is if you get it right the first time, or the second time, or heck, the 5th time when you work a question, once you get it right once, it counts in your favor. The intention is if you work a question the first time and get it right, you don't really need to revisit that question. It's pretty clear you have that knowledge down. But if you do miss a question, we want you to go back and work it again later. We want you to keep working on those weaker areas and shoring them up. Finally, we want you to do the practice exams. Part of this is because, well, part of getting ready for the CMA exam is getting ready for what it will be like to sit at a testing center for 4 hours taking it and helping to kind of pull together all of the knowledge you'll need, right? As you're working through the core content, you're going to be focusing in on each of those 6 parts or 6 components of part 1 and part 2. But the exam is going to mix them all up, is going to throw all of it at you at once. And so there's a necessity to have that practice, and that's the simulated exam. But you might wonder, well, why is the metric so much lower? Well, what we found is when you're practicing for homework, it's a good policy to keep reworking the ones you missed. But with the mock exams, we find candidates don't usually do it more than once. What they'll do instead is they'll work it once, and then they kind of look at all the questions they missed, and they use that as the way they study and continue to identify weaker areas to focus on before they sit for the test. Again, I'm not pulling these numbers just because, yeah, they sounded reasonable. These are numbers based upon those that have passed the exam consistently. These are kind of the metrics that we've found they have in common. Before I turn it back over to Simondar, I wanted to give you a little bit of advice. At the end of the day, for all of the details I just gave you, there's one simple truth. There's only two kinds of questions. That's it. And multiple choice is the majority, right? That's, again, 75% of your score. So proficiency on multiple choice questions is key. So the good news is I've yet to meet a student anywhere on the planet who goes, multiple choice, yeah, I've never done that before. It's as common as anything from an examination standpoint. And that means many of you probably say, yeah, I've done enough of these where I have some techniques I've honed over the years. I have some particular ways I approach multiple choice. Great. Bring them with you. They'll work here too. A big part of what people say helps them be successful in multiple choice is practice. Great. Do a lot of that. Some additional advice, though. One is how you read the exam questions. Accounting questions, CMA and CPA both, oftentimes have a lengthy fact pattern to work through. They can be long-winded. Plus, the examiners have recognized that one of the easiest ways to make a question more challenging is to give you information you don't need. That sounds reasonable, sounds like it might be important, but really isn't. So what you want to do is read the last line of the question first. It's called the question stem or the call of the question. It's literally, what is the question actually asking? If you read that first, you'll be able to filter the remaining parts of the question when you read them, and hopefully only have to read them once. If you don't do that, you may read the question, and then when you get to the end, go, oh, that's what they want to know. Oh, and have to backtrack and possibly read through the question a second time. Things like that waste your most critical resource, time. The next one is kind of a, I like to say to a lot of my audiences, it's okay to roll your eyes as I say this. Read all four answer choices. I know. But truth be told, sometimes it's not about the right answer, it's about the best answer. And that's how they grade it. So even though A may sound awfully good, if D is in fact a better answer, if you just said, oh, well, A sounds good, and you answer it and move on without reading B, C, and D, you may have just cost yourself points. Finally, make sure you manage your time. Although I'm telling you to read carefully, read all four answer choices, part of this is it's a timed exam, and you've got to move at a pretty healthy pace in order to get through it. Remember, it's 100 questions and you have 3 hours. So 33 questions an hour is a pretty fast pace, especially for some questions that may involve calculations. But you do want to answer them all. The way the exam is graded, that's preferable. Now, as far as the essays, the biggest thing there is it's still testing the same content that you're practicing with the multiple choice. It's just delivered in a different format. So a part of that is getting comfortable with the format of those questions, how they're asked, and the functionality, which is not as sophisticated. One of the things I'm used to talking to students about is the CPA exam and the simulations, which are fairly sophisticated in terms of how the software functions, and it's something that takes some getting used to. The CMA exam isn't quite that, although you do have to be comfortable with where will things, kind of be set up? How do I open different exhibits in the software? But ultimately, how you respond to the question, as I said, is open text. Probably the one challenge I find is sometimes when you're doing a calculation, it's a little hard to figure out how to type that into a word processor, but that's one of the things you may well have to do during the exam. Beyond that, it's about figuring out how to deconstruct the question. Again, a typical essay will have 5 to 7 parts. And so you have to figure out how to allocate your time effectively between them. To continue our discussion, but hopefully you found that to be a useful overview of the CMA exam, both in terms of content, its format, its structure, and a little bit about how Becker and Simondar helped to put our course together.
It was definitely an insightful session, like about the changes and all, Michael. So we are really thankful to have you here. There will be many more questions coming up for you as well. So Priyanka Jindal, she is a senior instructor who will be taking CMA lectures to you. So over to you, Priyanka.
I think Michael has said it all. So, and who can be better than discussing it? But yes, I would like to go into the detail of what topics are being, introduced and what topics are being deleted. So in my class, many students are curious to know, and it is a basic question of all the students that, ma'am, are there any major changes that are taking place? If we look at the syllabus of the CMA. So I'll just start sharing my screen to discuss a little bit in depth what all topics are being introduced and what all topics are being deleted or removed from the syllabus. So if I talk about part 1, the topics which are being added are consolidated financial statements, controllable margin, testing methods for internal controls, control deficiency remediation, and data management. Now, we need to understand that these are not major topics which are altogether being added, but yes, these are. So what is being done is that to make the content more explanatory, some new topics are being introduced and also some new illustrations are being introduced to explain the topic better. So what we are looking over here, this list that is being given, like if we talk about part 2, financial trend analysis, debt financing and equity financing, all these topics are already there. But now these topics are being made extensive, more explanatory by adding more illustrations. So the students who are preparing for the exams, they do not have to worry about major changes that are taking place. And as Michael rightly said, these additions are going to give us the feel that yes, where the trend is moving, what the institute is going to expect from us, from our preparation to take the exam. So yes, these are the topics. I'll just walk you through the details of it. If I talk about part 1, few topics have been deleted from unit 1D, which is cost management. In module 1, there are changes in analyzing mixed cost. So from this topic, please understand, the entire topic is not being deleted. Only the topic of high-low method is removed. Again, from module 3, there is a list of these topics which have been removed, like calculations of average unit cost, calculation using FIFO, calculation using weighted average, and comparison of FIFO and weighted average. Again, from module 5, section 6, theory of constraints, this has been deleted. So if you will see, from the main topic, some small topics are being deleted. And similarly, when we are going to look at the additions part, you will also appreciate that the larger topic is already there in the syllabus. But yes, few new additions, new explanatory paragraphs, new illustrations, as I have said, all these things are being added. Similarly, if I talk about module 1C, performance management, from that also a few topics have been deleted, removing topic 1.2, which is ROE. 1F, technology and analytics. Again, from here, data governance framework is being deleted, data framework management, and then simple regression, determining the best channel to communicate results. Again, these small topics, 4.2, 1.3.1, these are being deleted. Out of module 2, which talks about corporate finance and professional ethics, again, industry risk and political risk, these two topics are being deleted. Current ratio, operating and cash conversion cycle. See, calculations and examples, these are being deleted. So again, I am saying it again and again so that you people feel confident that yes, no new major changes are being made, taking place. Professional ethics, if we talk about it, morality and virtue, there is a topic on morality and virtue. What is the difference between morality and virtue? Different examples, case studies, they are being removed. Moral philosophy definition and what are the types of philosophies, they are being removed. Removing topic types of fraud, then IMA values and ethics, and then also human capital and facilitating payments. So again, if in module 4, first topic, it talks about capital, out of that, the third subtopic, which is human capital, this is being deleted, not the entire topic of module 4. If we talk about part 1 additions, in first module, which is external financial reporting decisions, new module on consolidated financial statements is being introduced, and consolidated financial statements is a very practical thing. So if you will study here, this is one thing that you are going to practice as a professional in the real world. Again, cost management. See what I told you, new illustrations are being introduced to make that topic more explanatory. So over here, new illustration on types of overhead cost is being introduced. Then certain updations are being made under analyzing mixed costs. Again, module 5, new topic, which is relationship between sales budget and other budget, that is being introduced. Factor to consider on how inventory levels and procurement policies affect direct material budget. Again, for this topic, I feel that this is really important for us to understand that what all methods we are using for inventory valuation, to understand how much inventory do we need to maintain, all those things. These topics are going to help us once we become professionals. Then direct labor budget feasibility study. Again, under module 6, there is added content. What is the added content? We'll just look at it. Cash budgets to describe the relationship between cash budget and other budgets. Preparation of cash receipts budget and cash disbursement on relationship between credit policies. This is going to be very interesting. I'm not saying that others are not interesting, but from a student's perspective, you're going to have a lot of fun solving these questions and understanding the entire logic behind it. Updated content in impact of financing and dividend policies on cash forecast. So this is another addition that we are going to look at for our September and onwards window. Then we have another examples being added in module 5. Then decision based on controllable margin, appropriate uses of ROI and RI. So all these small topics are being added. If we talk about internal controls, again, performing walkthroughs, inherent limitations on internal control, risk assessment and mitigation, monitoring the system of internal control, and also new section is being added here. So first two things are revisions to the existing content. Then new subtopic, which is monitoring the system of internal control, is being added. But another segment or new section is being added, which is internal control deficiencies. So when you are looking at the changes which are taking place, focus, you can, also focus on whether the existing content is being revised or new subtopic is being added, or altogether a new section is being added. That will help you to plan and understand how you have to manage your studies, manage how, which window to go for. Then technology and analytics, under this again, transaction cycle on production finance cycle. This is being added to the existing topic. Under module 2, restructuring flow. Module 5, new topic, p-value, multiple logistic regression and type of data analytics is being added. In fact, I would say that data analytics, types of data analytics is already there in the syllabus. We are just moving its place from module 4 to module 5. So no major change over here. Module 2, financial statement analysis, over here under corporate finance. This I'm talking about part 2. Okay, we are done with part 1. Under part 2, these are the additions which are taking place. So under financial analysis, so just now Michael showed you the entire breakdown. So under financial analysis, there are a lot of ratio formulas that we look into. So new segment that is being introduced here, or you can say the refinement which will take here, the formulas are being updated. So over here, the existing formulas will be updated. Some new formulas will also be added. Corporate finance, if we talk about it, again, new illustrations are being added. New example to the topic of debt instruments issued at premium is being added. So if you look over here, all new illustrations are being added. In module 4, new section, which is debt versus equity financing, is being added. Module 5, again, we are updating the example for payment discounts, new example for sale of treasury bills. And there is a topic of letter of credit, which we talk about in our class because this is relevant to what we are already studying. The material which we are already studying, letter of credit, is relevant. So we discussed this topic and now it is officially being added over here. Module 8, if I have to look at, again, see, focus, illustration is being changed. So please understand, the idea behind all these changes is to prepare you better. For the exam, and second, for the practical world wherein you are going to practice all these things. So again, updating, mitigating transaction exposure, some new topics like future hedge, forward hedge, money market hedge, all these things are being added to this topic. Decision analysis, example is being updated. Enterprise risk management, over here, there is reflow of entire unit, which means some topics will be shifted to other modules. Some topics flow will be shifted. If it is topic number 2 in the existing module, it will become topic number 5. So this is how, the entire flow of the module will change here and there. Investment decisions, if I have to talk about, over here, again, focus. New illustration is being added to sensitivity analysis. Right now, to the topic of sensitivity analysis, we do not have a lot of illustrations, but now we'll have another illustration to master this concept. Added a paragraph on discount rate, under risk adjustments. New section of profitability indexes being added. So as far as part 2 is concerned, you must appreciate that there are very less new sections which are taking place. New illustrations are coming in to make this content more helpful. Professional ethics is the last segment, last module of part 2. And under professional ethics, business fraud is being added. Topic of ethical considerations for the organization and developing ethical culture is being added. Again, there is a shift of topic of ethical leadership from module 4 to module 3. And under module 4, a new section on data ethics is being added. So this is all about the upcoming changes in detail, module wise, for part 1 and part 2. And all these changes are going to help us to appreciate and analyze what we are studying and what we are getting into as professionals. So this is what I had to share, Sonam.
That was insightful, Priyanka. So thank you. I would like Shripal sir to take up the session now.
First of all, thank you so much, everyone. I see a lot of questions on what is the exam fees and what is the cost. इतना सब तो बोल दिया है, पैसे कितने लगेंगे. So I think that is one of the most crucial questions. In the new exam, CMA 2024, the fees doesn't undergo the change, right? So the fees remain the same of CMA, what you have seen. And like you know, Simandar is the approved IMA partner, and you get 40% discount on the CMA exam fees. And that is one of the biggest value addition what you get when you are enrolled with Samandar. It's just not about classes, placements and all. And in fact, some finest faculties what Samandar have produced, and some of the finest alumni also. If you have seen the Zomato delivery boy story, he was a delivery boy, he passed USCMA, we placed him in Infosys. Now he got the best debutant award. And recently I kept a LinkedIn post also that he got selected into IIMs, right? So there were a lot of people who were asking me after CMA, can I do MBA from IIM or from ISB? So Ankur is your inspiration, guys. So there are people who are doing CMA faster. They are going for other qualifications also. There are people who have passed US CMA. They have done data analytics. There are people who are not good in English, not good in communication skills. They have enrolled for our finance for non-finance course as well. From Samandar. So these are value additions. There are people who are also going with CMA plus data analytics, because you see that data analytics is the biggest skill set currently. So at Samandar, you have those combinations. So if you are looking for to go into the big fours, my advice would be CMA plus EA, right? Because enroll agent covers the US tax, US CMA doesn't cover tax. So these are good combination way to dismantle, or I would say disrupt the market. Because if you go normal way just with US CMA, right, because it's a smaller qualification, it will get easily completed in 6 to 7 months. Max to max for working professional, it should take 9 to 10 months. That is a maximum time. And I'm 100% sure with the way our students are performing, right? So with just a USCMA fresher, the packages are ranging from 6 to 7 lakhs per annum. But if you add an enroll agent or add a data analytics score or add a finance for non-finance course, you kind of have a good chances to compete with even CPA for that matter, right? Because then you are having a complete combination. So what happens is CPA, the fees is very high. If you see the exam fees of CPA and the eligibility requirements, so CPA comes around 3.5 lakhs, right? And CMA gets completed in almost what 1.20 for students. So it's like overall investment is not more than 1 lakh to 1,20,000 for CMA. And that also we have loan options and in EMI, right? For students, definitely with the exam discounts, what Samandar has, the CMA exam becomes very less. I would say it's not so costly in that matter. So that is one benefit you will have whenever you enroll with Samandar. The discounts of 40% on the CMA exam fees becomes applicable. And also for the students who are working or who are studying full time in the college, they also have the complete scholarship, right? So they don't need to pay a single rupee to CMA chapter, right? And they have a scholarship, but then that have to be a accredited college, and you'll have to be in the approved NAC A plus colleges, and you have to be kind of studying there full time. You cannot have distance IGNO and all those stuff. You cannot enjoy any IMA scholarships in that matter, right? So that is one of the things which you need to watch out for. The investment in CMA is hardly 1 to 1.5 lakh. So that is what I would say. So it's not much considering that you also have a loan and an EMI. You don't pay much on that. So that is one of the questions which I wanted to address, because a lot of them were having this thing on cost actually. So if you split the cost, it should not come more than 1.5 lakhs, right? And if you split it into parts, should not be more than 75,000. And for students it is still lesser. So there are two categories in CMA exams, right? One is student category and one is working professional category. So what is a student category? If you're studying in a full-time college, or if you're doing a distance thing as well, right? Or a BCom or an MCom, right? And so you would be getting the student category. The fees for student category overall, including the CMA training fees of Samandar, is almost like 1.25 or so. But if you're in a working professional category, I mean, if you're working in any corporate, so you will be going into the working professional category. You will not be considered as a student because you're already in the job. So that's why job mein ho to paise zyada bharo. So the overall fees is 1.5 as per IMA. So because IMA exam fees becomes higher for working professional. So that's why there is a difference of 30 to 35,000 between students and working professionals. They think that students don't have a job, so they can't afford that much fees of 1.5. So that's why it comes around 1.2. And this is including Samandar training fees. If you see, the Samandar training fees is almost, now this month we have an offer like 50,000. This is the lowest Samandar fees ever actually in the history of Samandar education. Actually this month only we have that, right, for working and non-working professionals. So Samandar doesn't differentiate. We think that working and non-working, sabke paise is very important, and that's the reason the fees is 50. And if you go for a loan or an EMI, it gets changed to 55. So this is for this month only. We have released that. If you see that, it's a limited offer what Samandar have got it, and with great difficulty you're getting Becker and Samandar, both the products, to be honest. Actually previously if you see, we used to give Becker and not Samandar LMS. Now we are giving both the products of CMA at 55 EMI, if you see that. So this is like just a limited price. So we wanted to test, we wanted to ensure that students get this qualification, and this is something which is going in demand as well. So just because of the cost, we don't want to uh, uh, kind of not ensure like the students don't enroll because of the fees or something, right? So this is something which we wanted to do. Okay. Now, one question which came up was FMAA IMS certification. So do you guys provide that? Currently, we are not doing that. right? Because the demand for FMA is little less because people think that I can do a US CMA instead of FMA, right? And we already have finance for non-finance certification also. If you go in Samandar website, you will see finance for non-finance course. So people who are not good in communication skills, right, who are not good in giving the job interviews, and also we have that comprehensive finance for non-finance program. So that is excluding the Samandar fees. So this is chargeable again, right? Because that's a complete course in itself. So that covers basics of accounting, basics of US tax, basics of auditing, spoken English and all those stuff, communication skills, data analytics, a bit of Excel and all those stuff. So finance for non-finance course is something many of our Samandar students buy along with our USCMA course and CPA course because these days in job market, they test a lot on all these things, right? And now coming to the MOUs signed. So are there any MOUs of IMA with any of the authorities? Currently, they have an MOU with ICSI, which is Institute of Company Secretaries. There is no more MOU with Indian ICAI, right? So people who are kind of misguiding you that there's an MOU and you will get an Indian CMA degree also along with US CMA, that's not true. You will not get anything actually, to be honest. You will still need to write Indian CMA exam. So now, sir, Indian CMA versus US CMA, so which is a better choice then? I would suggest that US CMA is currently the better one because it is updated. The portion covers technology and analytics. These are the skills which are getting tested in the market today. Most of the jobs are also coming on that particular thing only. So my advice would be to go for Indian CMA. It's much updated, lesser in duration, only 2 paper exam, gets completed in 7 months. When you see Indian CMA, it's almost 17 to 18 paper exam, and it is like 5 to 6 years it happens to be completed. And even the success rate, if you see, 3% to 4% is a pass percentage of Indian CMA, right? Considering all these hardships, we are already seeing many of the students are opting for US CMA and they're finishing it off faster, right? And if you see the packages also of US CMA, I mean, the average CTC is around 6 to 7 lakhs per annum. Unlike CPA, because in CPA the packages are around 9 to 10 lakhs, but you need to understand that CPA requires more investment, right? So the ROI, if you see, it's like almost 4 lakh rupees investment in CPA, and in CMA you have around what, 1 lakh, 1,25,000. Even if I do an EA course, I can still complete CMA plus EA under 2.5, and can compete with CPA as well. So that's a better thing to go ahead and all those stuff, right? So my advice would be to kind of consider these parameters whenever you are going for it, right? The job market is not so solid what we see like we have in CPA or EA, right? So CMA standalone market, you need to ensure that you are very much ready. That's the reason we tell finance or non-finance. If your English is not good, if your communication is not good, if you're not well versed what you're talking, you cannot get any job, right? Even if you're a USCMA. So whenever people ask me, is there a job guarantee or anything? So there is no guarantee for anything. Even for life, there is no guarantee. So Samandar won't misguide you by telling mandatory job guarantees and all those stuff. I think that is not something which we do. But many of them who followed us, they know how good we are with our corporate connections and with our placements. So that is something which we already always do. So once you finish both part one and part two, I think that are something you need to kind of say. Now let's actually pick up some of the questions, right? And you might have already seen the Becker and Samandar software. It's the robust. It has around 5,000 multiple choice questions, almost 1,000 plus essays, right? Considering Samandar and Becker, so there is a lot of MCQs, lot of essays, a lot of live classes. We are the only institute currently in India who are doing live classes. You might have seen Priyanka also. So all are CPA, CMA qualified faculties, triple qualified faculties. So we don't do any recorded sessions. We all do live classes. All those live classes gets recorded, and you can watch the recordings also at your leisure. So you are given an option to watch live and recorded both, right? So yeah, I think Sonam, if you can take up some questions for me and Mike, we are happy to answer them.
Sure. So many of the students are nowadays more inclined, like which classes will be better, whether they go for a offline or online.
See, I think teacher is good whether it is online or offline. The teacher doesn't undergo a change. So there is a myth that if you're in offline, the teacher will teach you and all those stuff. The problem is in offline, what happens is if you miss any of the class, right, you cannot attend it again. You cannot go it offline because, and in offline, the course to complete becomes longer. because then you need to spend almost a year time or 1.5 year to complete USCMA. But with online, you have a flexibility. So on Saturdays, Sundays, you are also given recorded in case you miss any of the classes. You have that flexibility. Today with a lot of climatic changes, it keeps raining sometimes, it's really hot sometimes, so you can't travel and all these combinations, right? So at Samandar, we do lot of live classes and all at Zoom, and it's a live online classes, it's not recorded. So it really doesn't undergo a change. It's just the infrastructure, right? And in physical classes, there is that infrastructure and all, but the networking and all, we have a robust Telegram group, right? So it's not like you're doing a self-study. There's a complete study community of over 2,000 students. The moment you pick up questions, moment you have doubts, you can pick up those questions and put up in the Telegram chat window. You also have the Becker academic support, where you can ask questions to the Becker instructors and all, and the questions are answered. Because normally people, why do they come, right? They join any course, they want their doubts to be clarified, they want their questions to be answered after their class. Because in a physical class, you can't tell the teacher, hey teacher, wait, and I want to ask all the questions in one day. It can't happen, right? But in online classes, you attend the class, and if you have any questions, you can directly put up in the study group, right? You can put up in the Telegram chat window. We have so many of our mentors and alumni who are answering consistently your questions, along with Becker also answering your questions on that particular platform. So there's an academic support portal also in Becker. So Mike, do you want to speak about the academic support feature of Becker?
And also, I would like Mike to take up one more question from my end related to Becker. So as there now amendments, or there can be amendments in future also. So I would also like to take up the auto-updated feature which Becker has, and how it will be useful for the students now and also in future.
Yeah, for sure. And this is, whenever there's a major exam change, folks say, okay, how does Becker get ready for that? And I say, well, the exam changes all the time, right? Yes, sometimes there are big changes, sometimes small changes, but that's a regular occurrence. And so we have a pretty good process for dealing with it. So what's being shown here on screen is that whenever we're dealing with an update, so let's say like we already talked about here, certain content area updates, we will do it in multiple ways. So number one is there's an ebook, right? So we will update that ebook, and usually ahead of time, right? What we're figuring is once we get out of June, anyone studying for the exam will be studying for the new version. So we're going to try to get that in front of you as students as early as we can. We're also going to put out a PDF document that explains what those updates are. That can be useful if the updates are fairly minor. So if it's minor changes and it's a few pages that are affected, we'd rather be able to make that something that you could download as a PDF and say, okay, I understand here, this page changed a little bit, that page changed a little bit. Plus, the fact that the majority, in fact, really anything outside of the printed textbooks are online means we can update anything in the course. So if the IMA releases new questions to us as a review course provider, we can integrate those and then release those into the course and so forth. So that's a part of the update process, is we try to make it as easy to digest what those changes are as possible. In terms of academic support, I am always taken aback at how many students don't take advantage of it. Shripal is exactly right. Inevitably, you're going to have questions, and you're going to say, well, I'm not quite sure whether it's a particular multiple choice or an essay where you feel like you don't quite have command of the material, or maybe it's a broader concept where you say, I'm really confused about this. And knowing where you can go to get that answered is critical. So we have an academic support team. Their whole role with Becker is to field questions from students, and you submit those through the course platform. And they're obligated to get back to you in no greater than 2 business days, although oftentimes it will be quicker. So what I love about that is if you're working through a homework session, if you're working through a battery of questions and you're frustrated, it's nice to know, hey, you know what? I'm going to draft this question, send it to academic support. That way I can keep right on going. I'm going to keep moving through my practice, knowing that I'm going to get a response and I'm going to get the answer I'm looking for that question. So yeah, I think the academic support, and I look at academic support as I guess I would say it's sort of a two-prong in your case, because you've got the support from us kind of on a global level and our academic support team, but then you also have the variety of support that Samandar offers, both in terms of instruction and the support teams there, which is a heck of a thing to have, right? To be able to have both local and global support to call upon is an incredible asset as you prepare for the exam.
And I think if you see that there are unlimited practice tests in Becker, guys, and you have those flashcards, and a lot of them were asking, sir, I've enrolled last year, will I get new book, old book, this book, that book? The thing is, there is nothing called as old book, new book, or whatever, because everything keeps getting updated here. That's the beauty about having the Becker software, like, because they update it in every damn day. There are some MCQs, there are some new stuff coming up. So everything is updated in course updates. And if you see that, hardly there are changes, to be honest, actually. So don't unnecessarily waste money and buy another physical book. You can always check online, and because there are digital thing here completely. If you can see that there's a digital textbook as well, which I was showing here. So everywhere there is a chapter of digital textbook. There are hardly any changes for the people who have enrolled last year. So if you have enrolled now, anyways, you will get the latest updated 2024 physical books, right? So it doesn't mean that sir will not give the physical books. I mean, physical books will surely be given, but please don't keep asking every 3 months, oh, new changes have come, now give one more new book. So that doesn't happen, guys, because every time there are changes and all. So I can't keep giving you every month new book. So you need to have that habit of the changes happen. The best thing is the software keeps getting automatically updated, right? It's $1 million product. It's not some $5,000 product that it whatever is done and it's closed, right? So it keeps getting changed dynamically, and any changes comes up, it comes in course updates. So if you see that there is a handbook, there are IMA new questions which are tested in IMA exam and all. There are a lot of mock test, simulated exam 1, simulated exam 2. So if you see that all these things are there, along with that, you have the Samandar product also. So do you have a love letter from me on CMA? What all are the things which you need to go in? Once you enroll, please ensure that you see this welcome letter. There are Telegram groups which are study groups. If you can see that these are our study groups which I was talking about, CMA part 1, CMA part 2. If there are live classes, schedule, if you want to know, there are separate groups for CMA part 1, part 2 schedule group. There is job opportunities group. So people, there are a lot of people who just come in, join Samandar, and we have placed some of them, though we don't guarantee or whatever, but sometimes the companies open up the job opportunities for people who have just enrolled with Samandar also. We have placed them as well. So that's why there is a group that as well. Then you have a personality development group, which is a confession group. A lot of them, because college kids are there, they get distracted. I have a boyfriend, girlfriend, this, that, I'm in mental tension. And this is kind of mental health group, which we have created. It's a complete confession group. We think that mental health is very, very important. And we consider that as a biggest parameter to excel in CMA exams. And that's why there is a complete personality development group also. I normally answer in that group, and I take those confessions very, very seriously, guys. And then we have the exam batch. Then we have a 4 a.m. club. So people who want to wake up at early morning 4 a.m., this is the club which you want to join in. So normally if I'm taking any of the revision classes or something, I normally take at morning 4 a.m. only. So this is one of the activities which we do every year once. You will see that for 4 a.m. revision classes will happen this year as well. Once you enroll with it, these are more like an accelerator sessions. In case if you want to kind of finish off the exams faster 1 week before, 2 weeks before, these are all known as the revision classes. Then you have the registration process video, mentoring sessions. Every week we have the mentoring sessions and all. Then we have again mock test, basics of accounting, taxation, and auditing lectures for people who are not at all aware about the accounting, who are touching accounting after a long period of time, who haven't touched the book since ages. For them, there is some refresher on accounting, taxation, and audit. And then you have revision videos like we discussed and all those stuff. So these are the two LMS which you get. One is Samandar and one is Becker. One gives the live classes and those classes gets recorded. One is Becker, which completely gives you an entire platform for practicing MCQs, practicing essays, doing simulated exam 1, 2. Yeah, after this also, if you are failing, then I think something have been gone wrong considerably. You are not able to understand anything or whatever. So please ensure the moment you register, these are the two softwares end to end. Like you purchase an iPhone, you end to end, you go through the software. Please, my humble request, there are a lot of people who just invest money and don't even open the software. Don't do that, because we have a navigator tool also where I can track you what you're doing basically in that, right? So this is known as a navigator tool. Sometimes I send to some of the parents also your performances, because some of the parents also enroll their students and all. So this is very important for us. So this is known as CMA Navigator. This actually tells me that how many people are actually active this month. So there are, see, 1 or 2 months they are active, like 950 students, 526 students are this, that. So we keep monitoring their activities, how much they are solving their questions in the software and all those stuff. So these are when was their last activity, when was their first activity, how much are they enrolling, what are the people who are writing the exam. So that's like a complete dashboard which we give to the corporates, to the parents, and to some of the students who are lacking behind the schedule as well. So this is something which we want to ensure that our pass percentage is good in CMA. It's not just about giving jobs and whatever. We also equally want that you pass the exam as well. So that's why these softwares are extremely essential in order to help you to prepare for the CMA exam. Yes, next question, Sona.
Yeah, so generally, like they ask about the sequence also. Can they give part two before giving part one? And which is better actually? Is it to go part by part or take part two first?
I think, see, anyways, they have the recorded lectures and all, right? So they don't need to worry which live classes are starting or whatever, because we do in a year 4 or 5 times live classes. So if you miss off any of the live classes, you can always attend that again. Preferably, my choice would be part one or part two, right? So part two looks more easier than part one, is what I have noticed, right? Mike, would you want to add up your insights as well on this?
That verbatim would be my answer. Yeah. Part one is generally takes more invested hours. It's just got kind of more content. They say, yeah, I'm glad I did one, then two. So does that mean you can't succeed going the other direction? No, but yeah, I think if you said I would like you to recommend which one is better, I'd agree. I think taking part one first is the better choice.
Okay. So there are also a very big question, I would say, like as US CMA is a US qualification. So many of the people attending in the session, or many, whenever they talk to me, they ask, like, what is the value does it add? Is it really accepted in India? What are the opportunities for them?
I'll start from kind of I'll say this as someone speaking from the United States, and then Shripal, I'd love to get your perspective as well. I don't consider it the US CMA. Yeah, the IMA started in the United States, but the IMA is a global organization. The CMA is a global credential. It is recognized globally. It is one of the few credentials which I can say may even be more recognized globally than it is in the United States. And that's kind of a testament, I think, to what the IMA has done to promote the credential. So that's my perspective, is I think it is well regarded no matter where in the world you go. But Shripal, what's your perspective?
I think CMA is a terrific certification if they really want to go into FP&A sector. Like we see a lot of outsourcing happening in India. There are a lot of shared service centers which are getting opened. You have SAP, you have Oracle, you have Accenture, Capgemini, Genpact, and all those stuff. So people, see, just imagine, guys, if you're just a BCom, how will you go to a CFO level? Just with a BCom degree or with a graduate degree. So they always, the investors look for, if this guy have a professional qualification, does he have a professional certification? Does he have the competence to even interpret the financial statements? So in any matter, actually, CMA is a better qualification. It gives that confidence to the stakeholders, to the management, and especially to the interviewer as well, that he's just not a grad, he's a grad plus a CMA certified. So in that matter, I would say you have that great respect in that qualification as such. But now the problem is this comparison problem, right? This problem is since childhood, that this is good and that is bad. Now, if you compare that with an Indian CA or a CPA, then my answer would be obviously different one, right? Just because it's a CMA webinar and I want to enroll you, I just can't misguide you guys. Please understand that. You need to accept that CPA is a superior qualification in that matter, at least in terms of audit and tax, because there are a lot of job opportunities for tax and audit. But when you see in CMA, it's more of an FP&A, it's an analytical field. It doesn't deal with accounting much. It's more of an analysis, why thinking kind of stuff. Why my revenues are down, why my expenses are up, what can I do to take it right? So the future definitely belongs to management accounting, because a lot of the audit and tax stuff would get automated. So this is a future proof qualification in that matter, because analytics profiles are coming more. People are looking for business partnering skills more. People are looking for those students and professionals who can give valuable insights. And that's why I was telling CMA plus data analytics is a killer combination, because this is something a lot of startups in India are also planning to hire because they want to see how their profitability looking. Many of the startups are going into losses, so they want controllers to give them actionable insights. What should they do in order to ensure that they are profitable? And that's what makes CMA a better choice. Now, sir, which company will give me job is not the answer. How can you make yourself deserving in order to get shortlisted? That is a question you need to ask, right? And that's the skill set. I have seen a lot of chartered accountants, CPAs also not getting job, right? So it's not depending on which companies will select me. It's depending on how much I'm ready to give a value addition to those companies. And that actually decides the value of a qualification for me. So in that matter, I would say definitely any qualification you do, you can do wonders in that. Just that you need to understand the why of that profile and prepare accordingly. So in India, definitely these are the companies which hire for CMAs. Infosys, Accenture, Capgemini, Genpact, Electronic Arts are also giving internship. Electronic Arts, we have placed a lot of our CMAs for internships as well in Electronic Arts, which is the second biggest gaming company in the US, right? So like PlayStations and all, you might have heard about EA there. So that is what I would say. So these are a lot of shared services companies which are there and they're hiring like in bulk. But again, like I said, you also need to put your efforts and prepare accordingly. You can't be a person when you go to interview and you don't even know what are you talking. So then no one can help in those circumstances.
Yeah, thank you for the insightful answer. So there is another question. So how many hours has to be spent by a working professional to complete this CMA qualification?
Mike, would you want to take that?
It varies. I believe what I've usually heard from students in total is 250 hours plus or minus, but understand that it varies. Obviously, based on your education, based on your experience, is going to have an impact on where you may need to spend more or less time. I also think this is the benefit of having structure and a schedule to follow, both from a course perspective that we bring to the table and also from Simonhart's perspective in terms of, as I say, I saw a question earlier that talked about what is one of the most important or easiest mistakes to make in preparation for this exam. And I say, well, you need to set a study plan that is achievable. It's realistic given whatever else you have going on, work and life. And so finding a pace that's both as aggressive as you can be, right? You want to get through this, but is also realistic. I think that's even a more important question than perhaps the total hours that you're investing is what is a realistic number of hours per week that you can effectively invest.
Priyanka, would you want to add your insights for working professionals?
Yes. This is a very basic question that everyone asks in the class also. So what I tell is that you need to balance your weekdays and weekends. If you know that you are a working professional, so maybe on the weekdays you can spare less time for studies, and weekends spare more time. And also, if you will understand which subjects are your strengths and which subjects are your weakness, you can work better. Say for example, regulation is your strength. So maybe while driving, maybe while eating, maybe while free time, break time in your office, you can just revise all the concepts in your mind. You'll have confidence. But if suppose FAR is your weakness, so take up FAR on the weekends, spare more time, invest more time for that subject, so that you can have a balance between the strengths and the weaknesses. So there is no golden rule that you have to follow this schedule or you have to follow that schedule. The schedule will be unique to your strengths and weaknesses. So instead of first simply diving into the syllabus and start studying and cramming all the things, take deep breath, sit back, spare 2 days and try to understand that which subject can I study with a busy schedule, I can revise with a busy schedule, and which subject will require my full focus and I'll require more time for that subject. I think this is what you can practice, because this is what I practiced when I was studying.
Thank you, Priyanka. We have few more minutes. There were questions by the attendees who would like to talk to Sripal sir, Mike, and also Priyanka. So I would request them to raise their hand so that I can take few of their questions.
And thank you, Farhan, in the meanwhile, for such a great feedback. So I joined Samandar from today on. The group 2 started. I've taken demos from many institutes. This is a top one. Sripal sir is on a mind-blowing mission. He built an amazing system. The name itself explained that this institute take complete care of their family members. And Priyanka, I've seen her CA classes on YouTube, superb lecture, and she listened to us properly. Institute is more than everything. I'm not from this organization. I joined this institute as a student. I'll be present in part 2 classes started today. Thank you, Farhan. Really appreciate that. And I think, yeah, the name definitely signifies it's in the name of our current Tirthankar, Lord Simandar, and that's how Simandar Education have been formed. And thank you so much. Yes, guys, can we have some of them, I mean, unmuted and ask questions?
Sure, I would
Yogesh, if you
request
can,
host to allow them to talk. There are a few people.
I can see Manoj and Vishal hands raised. Yeah, Manoj, go ahead.
Hello, sir. Good
Yeah,
evening,
Manoj.
sir. Yes, sir. Hello. Can you hear me, sir?
You are audible, Manoj. You can go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, sir. I'm currently pursuing a third year BCom degree, sir. Can I do USCMA? It's the right way to do USCMA in this third year BCom degree, with the third year BCom degree.
I think 100% yes, Manoj. At your time, actually, I completed my chartered accountancy along with BCom, right? So when I was in BCom first year, I was in CA inter, in CA final. So by the time I completed my graduation, I completed my CA also at an early age of 21 or so, right? So I was a little young that time. I don't know. Now also I'm young, though it shows 35 as my age, though I don't look like one. But yes, I think, see, you asking these questions in BCom final year itself shows that how serious you are on your career, because there are a lot of people after graduation, they realize that, oh, you know what, I should have done this course when I was in graduation, because now when I started my job, I need to balance out both. So in your case, at least you don't have that struggle. And today's generation, they are highly competitive. You just can't compete with people here. If you're not qualified, if you're just a grad, I mean, you will see in the coming years how AI will automate a lot of the entry level jobs, and BCom will not even be seen currently, actually. And so that's the reason why I'm telling, with the too much of technology coming up, with the way AI is automating a lot of the stuff, the BCom qualification or BCom degree would be of no use in coming years. And that's why I would say a professional qualification is mandatory now. It's not just about Samantha you do from any institute. We really don't care. But what we care is just don't stick with just a BCom degree. And it will
Yes,
need
sir.
to know where, with the way technology is coming up, you'll really not get jobs.
Yes, sir. Sir, I am from middle class family, sir. I spoke with the team members in your institution 1 week before. They said that there is a EMA option and there is a single shot payment also there is for. I I want to know about the
Manoj,
if I want.
sorry for interruption. I will be connecting with you personally, and I will help you with the payment terms, as we have other students who have questions to be get
Okay,
answered. Okay.
okay, sir. Sir,
Yeah.
Sripal, sir, can I have one more doubt, sir? It's EA is better or USCMA is better, sir? It's which one is better?
Which is good
EA
for
or
you, is better for you, Manoj. How can I decide what is better for you? What
I'm
interest you
interested
should be
in both.
your.
Yes, sir.
So what is your
I'm
interest?
interested in
Do
both.
you love US
I
tax, or do you love accounting? Do you love analytics? What is your interest? Where do you find more
I love
joy?
both finance and taxation, sir. I love both
Bas,
finance
then
and
do both
taxation.
CMA plus EA. Then that could be a killer combination, right? CMA is finance and accounting, EA is US tax. You have done both and you are good to go.
Can I do first USCMA or ES?
Start with US CMA, I would suggest, because accounting is something which you're already familiar with, right? You have studied in BCom and all also. And parallelly, even if you want to do ESC, like I studied CA 20 papers, right? So it's not that you can't do two qualifications at one go, because these are all small qualifications. CMA has two, EA has only three parts. So if you want to do that also, it's okay. But I'd suggest to start off with CMA first and finish it off. And you also can be little confident once at least start studying, right? Then doing
Yes,
two
sir.
qualifications straight away. At least start with one qualification and see how much you can give time, because there are a lot of people who will talk a lot before the enrollment. Once they enroll, they don't even pick up their books. So this is a problem what we face normally. So you want to ensure that first you have that habit first, habit formation is very difficult, right? Once you start that habit of studying every day, then you can do anything what you want. Okay.
Sir, there is no certificate for me for technical skills. Can I do any certificate for technical skills?
Yeah, we have finance for non-finance. I think Sonam can guide you separately on. Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Sir.
Can
Thank
we
you,
have
sir. Thank you for your guidance.
Pinku
Thank you. Thank you,
Yogesh,
Manoj.
next person? Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, Pinku Pradhan, you are audible. You can go ahead with your question.
Yeah, hello, sir. Myself, Pinku, currently pursuing my BCom 6th semester. I've currently appeared my exam and I'm waiting for my results. So I've just joined Simandra for USCMA and I've even attended today's class. So, sir, are there any certifications that I can do along with CMA to like enhance my CV and all?
I didn't follow your question, Pinku. So what was that last line?
So I mean, like, are there any extra curriculum certifications that I should pursue along with CMA?
No, right now you just focus on CMA. So, Pinku, what I would suggest is to stick to that only currently, and how your interest goes and all. And upskilling have to be done with data analytics or something which is latest skill, because technology is nowadays tested in the interviews. So I would suggest once you pass that, and definitely you'll need to pick up a DA or an EA later, because that is what we are seeing as a trend in the jobs, that technology or then normal US tax jobs which are getting created. That's why I just suggested that. But I think for now, even see with the USCMA also, we have placed a lot of people standalone. It's not that, oh, I need to do more 2, 3 things, really not required. But what I'm telling is the chances or the conversions gets up substantially, because then you're technologically also covered. Along with CMA, you also have something where you can know how to do Excel and all. See, now Pinku, no syllabus will teach Excel. That's why we did finance for non-finance separately. In CMA, they will not teach you how to do MS Excel and do VLOOKUP,
Okay.
HLOOKUPs and all, because in the job they ask all these things. That's why we kind of push people to do that. Okay. So for now, I think you're good to go with USA. Okay.
All right, so sir, then as you recommended, Excel is a good course. Should you pursue with Excel advanced courses?
Yeah, that's what finance for non-finance is, that only actually, Pinku. So that covers
Okay.
Excel, a bit of data analytics and everything. You can go through the website, you will find that. In Samandar website or any of the counselors who have enrolled you in the past, they'll let you know about it. Okay.
Sir, if Tele does it act as a good role in it, or like Tele course is not needed for USCMA?
Pardon?
Tele course, Tele.
I don't know what is telecost. Not sure.
Tele course, Tele ER, Tele
Oh,
Prime.
okay. I understand what you're telling. It's Tally
Yeah,
actually. Yeah. So
yeah,
Tally and all is not covered. The accounting softwares are not covered currently. That is an Indian accounting software. So
yeah. Okay.
unfortunately, that we don't cover it actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Thank you,
see,
sir.
normally after USCMA, you get placed in US based companies. So they don't use Tally and all. They use
All
QuickBooks
right.
and other accounting software. And that's the
Mhm.
reason we don't train in those softwares. Okay.
All right, sir. Sounds great. Thank you, sir.
So everyone, thank you so much. It was great to kind of address you all. Like we discussed, if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out Sonam, Sirisha, or even our sales counselors. You can visit our website www.simandareducation.com. We're all set to ensure that you are job ready. You're also ready with your CMA exam, with your preparation and all. Please feel free to add all of them on LinkedIn as well. Have a dynamic personal branding profile. Ensure that you are very much visible on LinkedIn and other platforms so that people or the recruiters can notice you as well. This is Ripal Jain signing off. Thank you so much. It was great talking to you all on a weekend like a Saturday. It's not easy to come on a Saturday and attend these sessions. Really appreciate everyone. Thank you so much.
So before we wind up, I would like to tell a few updates. So we are having IMA discounts, as Sripal sir has already announced. 50% of the discount on membership fee and entrance fee is been announced. So which is valid till 19th of this month. And also there is a new batch of CMA part 2 what we have announced. So would love to hear from all of you. We have left the contact details into the chat box. Any questions will be much appreciated. Please get in touch with us. And lastly, I would like to thank one and all for taking out time and attending this session on the weekend. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.